Hello, dear viewer. Welcome to our show, Lease Show by Optiven, your favorite show in East and Central Africa. It's been a while since we saw you. We have really missed you, but we did not disappear for bad. We are here with greater information, things that we have been discussing before, questions that you've been asking yourselves every other time, and of course matters that involve real estate. Of course, we have a very able team here to answer all your questions, and probably if you're a new person joining us for the first time on this show, I shall be graceful enough to introduce my panel to you, and I shall start from my extreme left. We have a gentleman, the only gentleman that sits on this panel. He's a very lucky guy, and his name is Mr. Ian Wachira Wakili.
Thank you, Ito. Karibu sana, and thank you so much.
Awesome. Next to him, or next to me, is our very beautiful Miss Nafula Masinde, very bold lady, and I know she'll be able to tackle any topic that we shall be discussing. Though probably today it's a surprise topic, but you know she's able to do so. Say hi, Miss Nafula.
Hey, thank you very much, Ethan. It's always a pleasure being on this show.
And then on my extreme right, I have Miss Josephine Mbuvi. She's also an advocate working with Optiven, and we love Josephine. She is soft, but very, very certain of everything she says. Say hi, Miss Josephine.
Hello, welcome to the show.
So as I welcome you to the show, I have already introduced my panelists for the day, and we have a topic that is a bit sensitive when it comes to real estate. Something that every time you think of buying property, you have to encounter this particular document. And today we're going to be discussing about the titles. And you all know that as you're investing with Optiven, we give you legit titles. But in as much as we give you legit titles, do you get to understand what we are talking about, what document we are giving you? Or we just ask and say, nimenunua shamba, nipatie title yangu, you know? What title are you even expecting from us? What kind of shamba are you buying from us? So we shall be handling that and plus other more questions from you, our viewers, as we discuss our today's topic, which is titles issued by Optiven Limited. So probably I would ask my panelists, what comes to mind when you hear the word title deed? Ms. Nafula.
I think a title deed, in simple terms, is documentary evidence of ownership of land in Kenya. So anyone in Kenya that owns a title deed is the absolute owner of that particular property, and no one else can come and claim against that property unless, of course, they do so legally. Yes.
And if you're talking about this document, what kind of documents do you think we issue at Optiven? Ian.
So we have only two kinds of titles, and actually these titles are recognized by the Constitution, and they're also recognized by the relevant statutory authority, which is the Land Act and the Land Registration Act. So here at Optiven, we do issue leasehold titles and freehold titles. Yes.
Okay. Tell us more about the freehold title.
So the freehold title is quite an interesting way of owning land, in that you own this land in perpetuity. That means that even 10 generations or 100 generations down the line, they can still own this land without you renewing anything with the government. So you don't have to go back to the government asking for renewal of time or renewal of tenure of that particular property. So there are peculiar instances or peculiar descriptions and characteristics of freehold title. And one thing before I get to the characteristics of a freehold title is that a title is a reflection of what happens at the registry. So the title will show who is the proprietor or the owner of that property, if there's any kind of encumbrance on the property or any kind of right that one has granted through this property, then the title deed is able to describe that adequately. There's also one thing that people tend to overlook, and these are the physical features of a freehold title. And with me today, I have a freehold title. So I can just show it to our viewers for the purposes, for the benefit of our viewers. So this title has different features, and they're very important to note these features. So we first have the title number, because you can't be buying bread. So at the end of the day, you're buying property. But what property? So in the agreement for sale you have with the vendor, this particular part describes the title number of the property. it should be the same title number that appears in your sale agreement if you have a subtitle in place. However, you may find a situation where the vendor is selling before subdivision. So in this case, the vendor will be telling you this particular title will be coming from the mother title, which is a different title from this. But when the subtitles are out, make sure this number coincides with the number that is in your sale agreement. Then secondly, the sale agreement should specify the area that you're purchasing. That's the size of the property, or what most of us would call acreage. I know most of us are used to acres, 50 by hundreds, hundreds by hundreds, but unfortunately the government gives a different dimension or a different way of measuring land, and it is provided here. It is an approximate area. It is never specific. It's never up to the last exactly. So it's in this case it's 0.05, which is an eighth of an acre. Then we have a registry map sheet. This is the reference that the registry has. So if you go and seek for a cadastral map for this particular property, you'll be able to reference with this particular registry map sheet. Then again, the most important part again is the proprietary section, which also appears in the first page, but we'll come to it again. The first page should also describe the proprietor of this property, and that's Greek proprietor. This is the owner of the property. So your name will appear here, together with your ID if you provided your ID number in the transfer form, and together with your registered box. Then there's a description down here that describes how you're owning this property. In this case, since it's freehold title, it will describe that you're registered as the absolute proprietor of this property, and to translate from Greek to English, you're the registered owner of that land. So then you have the date that describes the date that this title was issued. And lastly, one thing that people, let me just go back to that particular page. One thing that people tend to ignore is that this part here, this is where you have the registry's seal. Make sure that your title has a seal, or otherwise it's a questionable title. Then the registrar's signature. Now let's go to the second page, which now forms the core part of this title deed. Without the second, third, and fourth page, then you don't have a title. That's for freehold title. Now we have a proprietor section, the property section, which also describes the property, the size, the parcel number, and the registry map sheet. So the parcel number is also your title number, which appears in the first page. Then it will tell you on this particular part when that particular register was created. In this case, we have, for this particular title, is on 23rd of June 2015. That's when this register was opened. Now, part B is the proprietorship section, which describes the owner of the land and when the title deed was issued, and that particular part has to be signed and stamped by the registrar. Now let's go to the third page. Now the third page, you note in our title, our encumbrance section is nil. This means that we have not taken any loan with this property. The property does not have a caveat registered against it. The property does not have a court case. So all this part should describe that. But there are instances where you're issued with a title deed that was issued some time back, but in between some things happen. So do not rely on this particular part on the subsequent pages, because at the end of the day you need to conduct due diligence on the property. But Ms. Nafula will explain the process of due diligence and the need for conducting due diligence. So we are done with the encumbrance section. Now the last page is also more often than not ignored, but is also very crucial. It describes what is being issued, and also there's a special code that is issued by the registry when this particular title was issued. So that particular number, you can go back to it at the registry and get the particular details that you need for this particular entry. So as much as, again, you have these particular serial numbers and special codes, conduct due diligence. As much as you have a title deed and you've been issued with a copy of the title deed for your search, you also need to establish that this particular title is the actual title that is recognized by the government and the Ministry of Lands. So that being said, That's basically a freehold title, and I'll bring the discussion back to Ethel so that she can guide us on the rest of it.
If
Okay.
Wow,
if
wow,
you would
yes.
allow me.
Yes, please.
So I do have a couple of questions
Right.
for my co-counsel here. So we do know that Optiven also serves clients in the diaspora.
Yes.
So there'll be questions like, I am a foreigner, can I own freehold property? Secondly, if I am married to a foreigner and I am Kenyan, yes, but my husband is, say, of France citizenship,
Yes.
can I have both my name and my husband's name on the title? And lastly, if I am a Kenyan, I went to work in Germany. I'm not sure if Germany allows dual citizenship. So if I am a Kenyan, I move to Germany. So I give up Kenyan citizenship and acquire German citizenship. Can I own freehold property?
Nafula, thank you so much for the question. That's a very pertinent question, and I thank you so much for that. So we have specific provisions of the Constitution which require the ownership of property to be distributed in a certain way. So the Constitution stipulates that only freehold title can be owned by Kenyan citizens only. So foreigners can only own leasehold title. And there's an interesting provision of the Constitution that also tries to cure a certain remedy. You may have a situation where a foreigner has a company in Kenya, and they are probably even 1% shareholder in that company, then the rest of the company is owned by Kenyans. In that case, that company cannot own freehold title. So the Constitution specifically provides for that. But in the event this proprietor or the person who's purchasing has a Kenyan spouse, they can have, if you trust them enough, you can have them appear in the title deed, but that's a very risky thing.
Yeah.
Because this person, you don't know what they do after. But if you trust them, you can proceed and register this title in the name of that particular person.
So I can't have my husband's name on the freehold title?
No.
As long as it's a foreigner, they cannot appear on a freehold title. If you lodge these documents with the registrar for registration, then that registration will be void ab initio.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much, Ian and Nafula. Now we can turn on to my right side and have Ms. Josephine take us through anything to do with the leasehold title. She will describe that to us and probably also give us a detailed illustration, just like Washira has done for us. Karibu, Ms. Josephine.
Thank you very much, Ethel. So under the leasehold system, properties are subject to payable rent and rate after a certain period of time. So this is a bit different from the system that we had discussed a bit earlier on freehold titles. Also, it is important to note that under leasehold, it is for a defined period of time. So we'll discuss this later on, and under the illustration, you'll be able to see that a leasehold has a determined period of time. So under this period of time, you get to enjoy your proprietary rights over this property. However, after the period of time elapses, the interest in that land goes back to the government. However, you as the initial lessee of the property get the first right, to have this lease renewed. Yeah, so that's basically it. So I will go ahead and try and illustrate the various features of a leasehold title.
Should I help you?
Thank you.
All right.
Right. So first of all, we have a sale. This is very important to determine the authenticity of this document. Afterwards, we have the title number, as we were told earlier on by Mr. Ian. This is very important because it defines, the property that you have interest in. Afterwards, we have the duration of the lease, which in this title is 999 years, and we also have the date from which the lease will run. So that is also specified there. We also have the annual rent that is payable. We also have the specific description of where the property is situated. Afterwards, we have the size of the property. You cannot, a document cannot define a piece of land without specifically giving the measurement of this plot. Yes. Afterwards, I think we need to
Turn to the other page.
no. So also here we have the signature of the registrar. And it is also important to note, and you will note there's a bit of a difference between this certificate of title for the lease and for the title deed that Ian had discussed on Freehold. Here we have a deed plan. So I know you did not see this on the previous illustration. So on the deed plan we have several things. We have the property itself. You can see it is properly illustrated here by a drawing, as you can see. It also has a description of the property up here. And down here we also have stamps from the lands registry for where specifically you are purchasing the property. So let's say if the property was situated in the central region, you'll get a stamp from the lands registry from the central region. Then afterwards we have a stamp by the director of survey. This basically shows the authenticity of this document.
So the deed plan has to be registered in the first place.
Yes.
Okay.
The proprietary section. I just want to have a question. So if Optiven is owning this property, and we have a purchaser, very good purchaser who has completed payment, and they have paid the whole amount, and we're doing the transfer for them. So what happens? Will they be issued a new title deed as it's done with the freehold titles, or will there be subsequent entries done to this particular copy?
Thank you for that question. There will be subsequent entries that will be made to this title. Yes, and also it's important to note that in the case that there is a charge that is registered on this property, by charges I mean the property was bought maybe on loan, or maybe or maybe the property was used as collateral for a loan in the bank. A charge will be entered into the certificate of title. So there will be an entry for a charge, and it will show where the charge, who has placed a charge on the title and when the charge was placed.
Something I have noted in most titles, probably I also know our clients have noted of the same. There are some that have got a tenure of 999 years, and some are mentioned they're written 99 years. I mean, Washira, are you able to differentiate the two for the clients?
So now, under the new dispensation with our constitution, the maximum period of lease is 99 years. But we are also cognizant of the fact that we had different acts prior to the constitution, and it would be very prejudicial to those who own land for those titles to be converted immediately. So the government, in the process of converting titles, is also reducing for those who have, let's say, 999, probably from 1963. I know about, maybe 50 years have been spent. But in this case, once the government has converted this leasehold title that was issued under the previous regime to what is currently applicable, then these titles will be converted to 99 years. But there's something good with the leasehold titles. When you're doing renewal at the lapse of 99 years, the government gives you priority to renew. Unless now they want to do something on the land, you'll be given sufficient and reasonable compensation for that particular property. If you had put up a building on that property, then the government will give you enough compensation if they do not wish to renew. So it's not that once the 99 years have lapsed, unaambiwa leta shamba yetu, now you go. Thank you for business.
And of course, I think in one previous show we had mentioned about leasehold, land rents, land rates and all that. And now also renewal of titles, I mean renewing of your ownership after the lapse of your 99 years. And the cost is not much compared to the value of the land. So it's not anything that you should be afraid of. And of course in another different show we shall be discussing how we can go about the renewal process if your 99 years have already lapsed. Something also we forgot to mention, I think, is there may be different titles issued under the leasehold regime, because some are mentioning that it was given for a term of 99 years from a certain date, or some are mentioning that we have a number of years remaining. So this is simple mathematics that you can calculate for yourself, so that you know by the time I am buying this property, I only have 23 years more left for this title to seek renewal for. But there are also some that just indicate for you how many more years are left. So if you see either, it is just not that one is not genuine and one is genuine. No, depends on how the registrar prefers to do them on their particular template. It is easier and it is prescribed, and it is advised strongly that you carry out a search before you buy your property. And after your property has been registered, you're finished buying it, it has been registered in your name, it is also advised that you carry out a post-registration search for you to ascertain that all your documents are in order, all your details have been captured correctly, and all the land details have also been captured correctly. I think, dear viewers, we have come to the end of our discussions, unless any of our panelists have got any other question, any other point that they feel like they have left out.
I think maybe just to mention, if you have a title that is under the old regime, you don't need to panic. The conversion is a progressive process. So far, I think the government has only done the Nairobi properties and not the entire Nairobi. It's just a part of Nairobi. So don't worry, you'll be notified once the government gets to your property.
For more questions on this particular topic or even on the campaign, you can call us on our number 0790 300 300. You can write to us on legal@optiven.co.ke, or you can also visit our website at www.optiven.co.ke. Without further ado, dear viewer, it is goodbye from me and the panel. See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Inspiring possibility.